Sumy. This is kind of 30-40 kilometers from the border with Mordor, and that is why my results might be a little bit biased, because this is kind of a very personal affair to me to counteract Russian aggression in this field, I mean, in the academic field. But still, I will try to stick to the facts, and I will try to show you that this is not just this thing of my imagination. And a small warning, because as I'm still live in Sumy, I may disappear any given moment, because electricity is kind of a rare guest in Sumy, and it tends to disappear from time to time. But I have a charging station, so it will take maybe 3 to 4 minutes to, let's say, reconfigure my energy system in my apartments, and I will reappear. If I have not reappeared within 5 and more minutes, well, in this case, looks like it was not a local blackout, but rather a Russian missile or UAV has hit my apartment. And in this case, well, I think you will get the presentation afterwards, but I will not get back because I will join the other side. But I hope not. I hope not, and we can spend an hour or something discussing how Russia and Russian academia is using science as a tool of propaganda. Let me try to share my desktop. Okay, let me share.
Yes, we can see.
Wow, that's great. That's great, because Teams is not a very common platform to me, but still. Let me start with some not actually with the end, but with the early beginning of my presentation. Okay, I hope. Yeah, that's a little bit better. A few words about me, just kind of a very common background, just to let you know who am I, why am I here, because overall, in general, I shouldn't be here at all, because I'm Doctor of Economic Sciences, and all my expertise before the start of full-scale invasion, it was concentrated in the sphere of finance, and more specifically financial markets. I mean, I was an academician, researcher. I have been published a lot of different papers in more or less reasonable international academic journals. I have been visiting professor in Austria, in Germany. I've been an expert, been interviewed by Bloomberg, again as an expert in the sphere of financial markets. What I'm trying to tell you that it was kind of a peaceful life of a more or less typical academician, not only in Ukraine, but overall in the world. But times has changed, and as a result, some of my activities, actually most of my activities, they have changed as well. These are some illustrations about my involvement into international academic sphere, etc. By the way, I'm still. This is kind of a funny fact, and a good reminder that there is a strong momentum in economy and in the academician life as well. I mean, I'm not publishing economic papers for something like 4 years, I would say, but still I'm holding the first place as a top Ukrainian author, at least according to Ideas ranking. Strange, funny, but truth, at least for a while. After 2022, I have changed my activity quite significantly. There were two, I would say, major directions. The first one, let's say, a peaceful direction. I was trying somehow to summarize my expertise I have received during my kind of 20 years of academic activity, because when you are constantly living on the pressure that this day might be the last day of your life, it's kind of a good stimulus, a good sensitive to you to try to leave something after yourself. That is why I have decided to summarize all my expertise in the financial markets, in the sphere of financial markets, in the sphere of speculations, trading in the financial markets, and I have wrote a book about this, a good one, actually, I'm proud of, but there is even more proudness product for me. This is a textbook for school children for the 8th and for the 9th grades on financial literacy. But this is more about a hobby, of course. And today I would like to discuss with you not such kind of a light side of my activity, but rather about the dark side of my activity, because it fills with anger and hate. That is why this is certainly not kind of a light side. I would like to discuss with you a very toxic topic, a topic which is commonly ignored by the international organizations, academicians, because there are some things you would like not to see, not to discuss. Uh, you would like to take an ostrich position. Yeah, your head is in the sand. You don't hear anything. You don't want to see anything. You can say anything because your head is inside the sand and your mouth is filled with the sand. Uh, but still, despite the fact that this topic is mostly unexplored, and even inside Ukraine, there is kind of no activity, I mean, typical, common, systematic activity within this. Uh, I'm, we are trying somehow to fix this situation and to discuss the role of Russian science in this war, role of science as a tool of propaganda, a role of science as an instrument to finance the war, a role of science as a mechanism which provides new inventions to create better missiles, better UAVs to kill more civilians, and not only civilians actually, but overall Ukrainians in general. Um, by the way, this is going to be a long, a long talk, a tough one, and if you will have any given questions during my speech, please feel free to interrupt me, and we will have some interaction, communication, etc. Because I truly believe it's kind of hard to listen for more than 1 hour for a monologue, especially a tough one. But still, the problem is, as I have been mentioned, different sources provide different figures or numbers, but the consensus is more than 25,000 different sanctions were adopted against Russia. But these sanctions, they are mostly concentrated inside the economic sphere and plus minus political one. But there are some spheres of activity which are kind of untouched. For example, the Russian culture, literature, because they are great and they could not be punished because this is a heritage of the whole humanity. And the Russian science, this is kind of a part of a similar thinking, because academic freedom, actually, this is a very important element of the science role in general, but this element, I mean, the argument, the academic freedom, is commonly used by Russia to say that you should not, you cannot punish our academic activity, and using this as an advantage, the Russian science spreads propaganda and other forms of stuff I think we will discuss with you today. The sad thing is that using this, let's call it a hole. I mean, this hole is used not only by Russian academicians, Russian state, but also by the international community. And I'm not talking about the eastern part, but about the western part as well. Western international journals, publishers, they are still quite okay to collaborate with Russian journals, with Russian institutions, even with those who openly support aggression against Ukraine. They justify the annexation of Ukrainian territories. This is quite a sad fact. But the even more sad fact is that some Ukrainian scholars, they do still collaborate with the Russian counterparts. They are members of editorial boards of Russian journals. They are co-authors of publications with the Russian academicians. I mean, a lot of issues, a lot of problems, but I would say no solutions available on the table here and now. And now, as I have been mentioned, systematic activity within this. That is why me and my colleague Inna Makarenko I would say something like 2 years ago, decided to, let's call it a crusade, to start a crusade, or maybe a fight against windmills, which is maybe more relevant analogy. We decided to change something in this consensus because years were passing by, 2022, 2023, and all these problems that have been mentioned, they were still here, they were with us. And what is more important, there were no activity to fix these issues and problems. So we decided that, okay, despite the fact that in Ukraine there are kind of 40 million people, currently I believe less, but still, and looks like no one cares, we decided that 2 people, they do care. And we have been started using our own resources, our own time, without kind of any salaries, beneficiaries at all, except, of course, that we were risking and actually sacrificing our reputation. I mean, 10, 20 years of achieving of reputation inside of academician sphere, we actually were ready, and we have done this, sacrificed in the honor of this crusade. A year ago, we have created, because we have understand that it's much more easier to make this crusade under the flag, not under the personal name from me or from Professor Makarenko, but rather from some, let's say, institution or organization. That is why in the Sumy State University we have created think tank research of fakes and propaganda in Russian science. And I would say it was a good move. It really helps us to scale up our activity and to make more, at least compared with those results we have previously. Just in case, here is a link for our think tank. It has Ukrainian and English versions. There's really a lot of different types of materials about our activities, results, publications, etc. So feel free to visit it and to know a little bit more about us. Key directions. I mean, what are we trying to do, and what are we trying to counteract? What are we trying to research? Different aspects. For example, one of the major activities, Russian propaganda in science. But also, we are trying to counteract the international academic collaboration. It's not only with, or actually not mostly with the Russian science at all, but at least with the active Russian war supporters, just kind of a starting point. Professor Makarenko, I believe, 3 months ago, She has presented you the results of one of our directions, I mean the editorial boards of Russian journals and what is happening there. I think it was a good research, and this year we have been started the second part of this research. We really scaled up, thanks actually to the help of this project as well, because after the Professor Makarenko lecture, 2 students has joined out, and we have managed to make much more damage to the Russian science thanks to this. So your project, it works, and it's great. And I think maybe after today's my lecture, there will be some other participants, and we can even more scaling up the process and make more damage to Russian science. Because counteraction to Russian science is also one of our main goals. And also one of the aspects, the discussion of stolen Ukrainian universities, academician organizations, because this is an issue which still has no solution yet available. The problem, it lasts since 2014, and just imagine, we still do not have in Ukraine the list, the whole list, the total list of the stolen organizations. I mean, there are different extractions from different registers, but no single database. I mean, a lot of different problems, and I will try to show you how we were trying to address them, how we were trying to explore them, research them, and also I will try to show you some proof that this is not the result of my imagination, my biased imagination, my subjective perception of reality, because, let me remind you, I'm biased and subjective. If you would like to have a very brief overview of our results and achievements, I would highly recommend you to follow these links and to read this article published on the Vox Ukraine analytical platform. This is rather niche media, but still there are kind of, I believe, 12,000 reads in both languages, I mean in Ukrainian and in English as well for this material. I think there was kind of a lot of interest to this. So if you would like to have a very brief overview, and for example, you're already tired of listening to me, you can follow this link and to explore this article. But let's move further, kind of step by step. Let's start with a discussion. I mean, sanctions against the Russian science. Should it be present at all, or maybe not? Do they have right for existence or not? We have published an academic paper to discuss pros and cons for the science. I mean, to be, let's say, more or less objective here, because each time when you are provided only one-sided view, it made an impression that you are making some cherry-picking things. That is why we were trying to weigh the pros and cons. You can find it in this paper, and also you can read my material, my interview to Kunst. This is the, let's say, media, Ukrainian media, which deals with the science. They mostly concentrate on different aspects of science in Ukraine, in the world in general, this kind of a science pop or something, non-fiction. The arguments against sanctions, I mean, why should not be sanctions applied against science of a very general nature, and including the arguments for the Russian science as well. Science is beyond politics. They have been written during our campaign against editorial boards of Russian journals. They have been written, I would say, even not hundreds, but thousands of letters to different international academicians, and we have received hundreds of replies. And really, quite often, the replies were quite nervous, toxic. Academicians were annoyed because they don't understand why actually they should somehow feel that being affiliated with the Russian journal is a problem because they do science. And our letter, this is kind of an intervention into the private academic life with our political issues. I mean, this is the real argument from the real life. Also, we have a very typical, we can call it narrative or consensus. I mean, the free thoughts of ideas in academician and academic freedom in general. I mean, this is something which should be present in any case. Plus, sanctions could punish the innocents, and this is also a potential argument. Also, there was an argument that Russian science, as a Russian culture as well, Russian literature, etc., they are too important for the world in general. And that is why we should not, in any case, punish the Russian science. This is too costly for the world in general. And by the way, sanctions overall, they are ineffective, they are costly, and there is no need to deal with them. Plus, how sanctions against Russian science can fix the issue. By the issue, I mean, of course, the war of Russia against Ukraine. I mean, the arguments against sanctions, they are quite powerful. And this is a partial explanation why do we still here where the major issues are not solved. But I feel that arguments in favor of sanctions, they are quite powerful as well, because in any case, Russia should be punished. I mean, there should be some form of justice in this world. And sanctions, this is an instrument to provide justice. Also, this might be a signal to stop the war because academicians, well, they might be not the major part of Russian population for sure, but still this is a part of population, and this might be a signal to stop the war. Plus, science is also a part of the economic life, political life, and life in general. And that is why if we are weakening the science, we are weakening Russia also in general. Also, sanctions provide some stimulus to, let's call it a brain drain from Russia. I mean, people, there was kind of an exodus from, I would call them normal academicians and scientists who wouldn't be associated with Russia. And I would say the best scientists actually have done a choice, the right one. A typical argument for me, at least, you will hear it for a while from me many times. Russian science is used as a tool of propaganda, and this is one of the reasons why Russian science should be sanctioned. Plus, Russian scientists, they actually do quite actively support the war. I mean, you expect that people with the IQ level more than, let's say, 100, 120, 20, they should kind of distinguish the evil and the good. But no, they do not. Maybe this is the case of brainwashing, maybe not. Actually, I don't care. I do care about the facts. The fact is they do support in different forms. And also scientists, and it was always in the Soviet Union, in the Russia, scientists, they were creating military technologies. And each missile which has been launched from Russian territory on Ukraine, this is the result, the direct result of the activity of Russian sanction, of Russian science. I mean, the list of arguments in favor of sanctions, I believe, is also quite convincing, let's call it so. By the way, I would like to oppose some arguments against sanctions. The great Russian culture, the great Russian literature, the great Russian science. Who said that it is great? This is kind of a thing to be discussed, and we actually can have some, let's call it objective criterions, quantitative measures. Let's take a look, for example, at the Nobel Prize laureates from Russia, just to estimate the role of Russia in the global science. And what do we have? Here is a table. And I think it could be clearly seen if Russia will disappear from the international academic landscape. No one would see that. The funny thing, of course, that among those 6 Nobel prizes which were awarded to Russian, but actually half of them were post-Soviet, I would say, because we know about time lags for the Nobel Prizes. But still, 2 of them were awarded for peace. An irony. Some additional discussion regarding its arguments against sanctions. I mean, science is out politics. Really a lot of examples where the Russian science it was directly involved into politics as well. Also, the arguments about the innocence, the free flow of thoughts. Well, overall, in general, nothing stops Russian academicians to take their bags, to go to the railway station or to airport and flee from Russia and not be affiliated with Russia and do the science. There is no any disruption of free flow of thoughts. This is a matter of choice. And if you have been done a choice in favor of being in Russia, so it was your choice and your responsibility. It was you to decide. But it's quite typical, of course, for Russians to blame someone else instead of taking responsibility for their actions. Results. One of the arguments against sanctions, they are not working, they are not efficient at all. Publications, if you would like to have some publications in media, that is why it is kind of easy to perceive reading. In Vox Ukraine and in one of quite popular Ukrainian media, Mirror of the Week, about the results of the sanctions. You can clearly see the efficiency on this chart. I mean, the number of publications, the number of citations, the number of views, and it is, I would call it a free fall. I mean, the decline in results, it is measured by 30, 40, 50, 60%. Just compare, for example, this column before the start of pandemic, for example, and this one in 2024. These are huge differences. And this is, I would say, direct evidence that Russia is slowly but surely disappearing from the international landscape, and this is a direct evidence that even those unofficial sanctions which are present in form of boycott of Russian science, in form of the refusal from financing from common international projects, etc., they are quite working. And this, I believe, is quite impressive. But there is one teeny stone in my shoe, or in the shoe of Ukrainian science, and it was always a good counter argument. I mean, Ukrainians are always claiming for something and trying to blame us. I mean, for example, Europeans, that we do not provide a proper measures. But what about you, actually? This is a very strong and powerful argument. For example, when we were claiming for Europe to stop buying Russian gas, the Europe were asking, but you are still an element of the transfer system of Russian gas. Why shouldn't you stop doing this? Just in case this year we have been stopped doing this, but still, it was a good counter argument. And in case of science, there is quite a similar counter argument. The number of joint Russian-Ukrainian publications. Since 2022, there were more than 1,800 joint publications where Russian and Ukrainian academicians were present at once, simultaneously, in the same paper. Very shameful fact. And that is why we were trying to somehow fix this issue. Because if we do not provide an example how to act properly, we cannot claim for any additional activity from our partners from Europe, from the US, Japan, etc. Just in case, as usual, some publications regarding this issue. I mean, exploring the, let's call it, scientific brotherhood. We were trying to answer the question whether it was truth or it was an illusion, because Russia is extremely good in creation of illusions, creating of something which is not existing and has never been existing. Well, the results are as follows. For example, if we will exclude from this list of 1,800 publications those which has more than 20 co-authors, because what does it mean 20 co-authors? It means that there was a huge international project, and it was not a result of direct communication, collaboration of Ukrainian and Russian sides, but it was rather an evidence that international academic sphere still communicate, still collaborate with the Russians, and it was not kind of an issue of Ukraine, but rather an international issue. So a third of these papers could be, let's say, removed or ignored. Also, we have found additional, let's call it, issue. We have explored those publications where there were less than 10 authors. I mean, the teams, the research teams were not very big, and that is why if you have been present there, almost for sure you have been communicating inside this team, and it could be called a collaboration. And this is a direct evidence that the problem of stolen Ukrainian universities and organizations, this is something from the real, and it is a source of myths, a source of mythology, a source of illusions. In 80–90% of cases where paper has been kind of Ukrainian and Russian co-authors, these were actually Russian co-authors, because these were papers from the annexed Crimea and stolen Ukrainian universities from Crimea, from the Donetsk region, from the Lugansk region, from the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions as well. What I'm trying to tell you and show you that among these 1,800 papers, kind of less than 100 could be identified as those which were really the examples of collaboration between Russian and Ukrainian academicians. I mean, in 90% of cases, more than 90, it was kind of an illusion. But still, even 10%, this is a shame. The real shame when the everyday people are dying and you collaborate with Russian counterpart. We decided to fix this issue. We have collaborated with the Ministry of Education and Science in Ukraine. We have created a database of those Ukrainian institutions, of those authors who has been collaborated with Russian institution and authors, and each of these institution and author has received a letter of request from Ministry of Education and Science with a simple question: what is going on actually, guys? We received close to 70 official responses. And again, they provide us with a set of interesting information, because despite the fact that looks like really 92 cases they were a direct collaboration, actually there were nuances. In some cases, Russian co-authors provide the incorrect affiliations for their affiliation or for the affiliation of Ukrainian authors. In some cases, Russian co-authors included Ukrainian without their will. Ukrainian authors even don't know about this. And other issues and nuances as well. But still, there are really some real cases. And we have explored the reactions of Ukrainian institutions. They were quite different, but still, I would say we have created some noise. It was very toxic topic. It was very toxic for me personally because I've been in charge and responsible for kind of the publication, for the creation of letters, etc. But as I have been mentioned, I don't care about my academic reputation. I do care only about the results. In some cases, people were fired. In some cases, their contracts were terminated. In some cases, even departments were liquidated. I mean, they were quite material results. And to tell the truth, after those noise we have been created, I'm totally sure that next year, there wouldn't be 92 publications in 2026 year, for example. There would be 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 times less. And this is, I would say, a direct result and direct evidence that it worth it. I mean, our activity, it has sense and it has results. By the way, about this, let's proceed because I do constantly mention the cases of propaganda from the Russian science, and I think I need to clarify somehow how it works and what are the forms. Two major moments, quite often, I will show you what do I mean by quite often. Russian academicians in official academic publications, in their affiliations, mention Ukrainian territories as Russia. I mean, they label them as Russia. In Crimea is Russian, Donetsk is Russian, Kherson is Russian. And this is, I would say, quite a powerful instrument to create a narrative or to move the overtone window from the impression that Crimea is Ukrainian to impression and perception that Crimea actually is Russian, because you see in every single academic paper Crimea is mentioned as Russia. So this is Russia because this is science. Science is quite objective. It is out of politics, let me remind you. And also Russia quite actively spreads propaganda and propaganda narratives inside the academic papers. So these are kind of the issues. Let me show you how it works. This is an example from the Scopus official Scopus database from the Scopus site. Let me remind you, Scopus, this is a cyanometric database owned, by the way, by the international publisher Elsevier, which is located in Netherlands. I mean, we are talking not about Chinese database or something. We are talking about the heart of the Europe. And the heart of the Europe, it actually calls the Ukrainian Crimea or Ukrainian city of Sevastopol or Simferopol or any other as a Russian Federation. Netherlands, Elsevier, Scopus, Europeans. And this is quite a sad fact. Another example. I mean, I can provide you with not hundreds but thousands of similar examples. And this is kind of a drop of water. Even Mariupol is marked by Scopus as a Russian Federation. I mean, the city was still burning after the Russian attacks, but Scopus has already mentioned that Mariupol is Russia. Extremely sad and shameful fact. Just some figures to show you the scale of the problem and the progress. I mean, the situation is getting worse day by day. In 2022, Donetsk was mentioned as a Russian Federation in 10% of cases. In 2024, it was 86 cases. And the situation is, as I have been mentioned, getting worse day by day. This is Scopus database. Also, Scopus, for example, incorporates in its database fake Russian institution based on the stolen Ukrainian universities and organization. For example, incorporating them into the structure of the Russian Academy of Science. It was Scopus' choice to provide such a structure of the Russian Academy of Science. They have been done this choice. And this is very sad. By the way, just to be less toxic and more objective, we have been sent a request, by we I mean our think tank and the Ministry of Science and Education of Ukraine. We have sent a request to Scopus to fix this issue. We have asked them, why do you mention stolen Ukrainian organizations as a part of the Russian Academy of Science and as a part of Russian Federation? In this screenshot, you can see the results. Previously, there was stolen Ukrainian organization from Yalta mentioned as a member of Russian Academy of Science. After our request, it has disappeared. Silently, but still, and kind of 6-7 times. This is just to demonstrate you how powerful the effect of these stolen universities is. I mean, the number of publications, and each of these publications, it has been mentioned Ukrainian territories, Ukrainian cities as Russia, and it was mostly thanks to the availability of stolen Ukrainian universities and organizations in Scopus. Why does Scopus afford this? This is kind of more than a rhetoric question. By the way, about the rhetoric questions and answers to this, of course, I have been communicating for something like 9 months with the Scopus, with the vice president of the Elsevier to clarify the situation, to fix the situation. Changes were extremely minor, and I would say this communication was more of a failure, because this is the official position of Scopus. We are not responsible for the information displayed on our official site. Very suitable position, but we've got what we've got. But this is not kind of a crusade for me against Scopus or against Elsevier, because majority, I would even say all, of the leading major international publishers, they do the same. Absolutely the same thing. I mean, they mark Ukrainian territories as Russia and moving this narrative through the international science. And we are talking about hundreds of papers. Just to provide you some proofs, this is Springer, official site of Springer, official site of official Springer journal. Simferopol is marked by Russia, and it's not inside the paper. This is the editorial board. So in its official site, Springer thinks it's quite okay to mention Simferopol as Russia. They are also okay to mention Ukrainian territories as Russia inside the papers published on Springer sites and Springer journals. They are quite okay with this as well. The list of journals where Ukrainian territories are marked as Russian in the Springer journals. I mean, just to show you that it was not a cherry picking, this was not a single paper in a single journal. Overall, in general, Springer publishes something like 200 Russian journals, and there are dozens, because this is just a fragment of the table, and I have stopped on letter C, ABC, and we already have 10 journals where, and you have links. You can follow each of these links and find that in this specific paper of this specific journal, Ukraine is mentioned as Russia. And again, case of editorial board, I have provided you with. This is not a part of cherry picking process. This is a part of a system. Scopus journals where Ukraine is mentioned by Russia as Russian. Official position of Springer, I think you understand. We are out of politics. We don't care about territorial issues. We are neutral. We don't want to hear, we don't want to see, we don't want to say anything about this. We are not responsible about the information which is displayed on our sites. And this is the same for other publishers as well. I don't want to bother you with kind of additional info, but let me assure you, this is the case for Taylor Francis, IOP Science, AP Publishing, and also this is true for the biggest databases like the SSRN or Archive. This is also true for the academic social nets like ResearchGate, like Academia, Edu, etc. A very typical case, a very typical example. And also there are a lot of papers. I don't provide you with the whole list, just some examples where propaganda could be found inside the text. I mean, it takes different forms, starting from the justification of legality of Crimea's annexation to, for example, mentioning the Ukrainian territories as Russia inside the paper, for example. Here is a list of Russian regions, and, for example, you can explore some, I don't know, epidemiology situation in Russia. You might ask me, but where is politics here? Where is the propaganda here? But inside the epidemiology-based article, you will find the list of regions with some figures, and the list of regions will include, for example, Crimea, Russian regions, I mean, will include Crimea, will include Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, Donetsk, Lugansk, and things like that. Despite the fact that these issues are present, despite the fact that there are different forms, other forms, how the Russian academia support the war. I'm talking about public statements, different forms of material support, when, for example, Russian academics and Russian academicians, Russian universities, they do donate to the occupation army just to be more efficient in killing Ukrainians. They do also promote propaganda. They do provide some collaborative research with Stone Ukrainian universities. They also do things with the recruitment and training. They also allocate funding. They also have educational programs, for example, for the kidnapped Ukrainian children. They do also different type of event hosting, etc. If you would like to read a little bit more about this, please take a look at this publication in media. I will just provide a very brief overview. I mean, there were really a lot of public statements. They were openly public, they were promoted, where the Russian academicians, they do support the aggression and war against Ukraine. They do justify this. And I mean, this was a direct signal that the Russian science is not out of the politics. I mean, I have provided with just 7 examples. There are much more, and we're talking about thousands of Russian academies. I mean, these are not just a bunch of madmen. No, this is kind of a part of a mainstream. Despite of this, for example, those universities which has been signed a letter of rectors, a letter of support, a direct support of aggression against Ukraine. These universities are still present, for example, inside the Scopus database. Also, other examples, I won't waste your time. Just let me assure you that each of my statement, it is supported by fact, by proof, by link. The case of material support, propaganda, help in annexation of Ukrainian territories, recruitment training, funding allocation, etc., etc., etc. So I will share my publication. I mean, I will share my presentation, and you can find the links and follow them and to find the proofs. to all of this. I have been already mentioned that Springer is absolutely okay to communicate, to work, to collaborate with those universities which are publishers of the Russian journals, and Springer is a platform where these journals are available. The links for the Springer journals, and these are the links and the names of those universities which are publishers and which has openly supported aggression against Ukraine. The sad thing is that you might say, okay, but it was before 2022, and that is why it was kind of something from the past. Scopus has added 77 Russian journals into its database since 2022. I mean, they are absolutely okay to collaborate with Russia, new collaboration with Russia, even with those universities which has openly supported aggression against Ukraine. Quite a sad fact. Some of the journals are published by the Russian Academy of Science, which is one of the biggest supporter of war. But Scopus, Springer is okay to collaborate with them as well, despite the fact that they have a formal position. They have issued a letter where they have supported Ukraine, and they have said that they are against all these actions. They were individual statements as well. But these were just words. In real life, the actions were, I would say, quite close to opposite ones. Sad, but truth. I mean, formal position, we are on the Ukrainian side, and real life position, no government sanctions are in place. That is why we can collaborate with Russia. And this is, by the way, additional argument why sanctions against Russian academia are so vital, because they will provide a formal legal reason for companies like Elsevier, like Springer, to at least revise their attitude and the current state of collaboration with Russia. Quite similar statements were issued by other international publishers as well. This year, our think tank and Ministry of Science and Education of Ukraine has organized, I don't know, let's call it an attack on international organizations which do still have members from Russia after kind of 3 years of full-scale invasion. We have sent requests with motivation why this is quite strange and toxic, that these organizations, they still do communicate and do have members from Russia. For example, International Association of Universities has 5, 6, 7 Russian universities, including those which has signed the shameful rector's letter. And I mean, we have defined kind of 30 such organizations and sent 26 official letters. A very typical position, an ostrich one, let me remind you, no response. We don't want to hear, we don't want to see, we don't say anything. 65% of international organizations decided to make in view that they don't know anything about this, despite the fact that it was an official letter from the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine on their official email. Some have responded, and actually I believe five organizations decided to suspend the membership of Russian organizations, which is, I believe, a form of success. For example, before our letter, after our letter. 0 members, as for me, looks much better than 7 members. Teeny steps. I mean, these steps, they not change a lot, but still, constantly, but surely, we are removing Russia from the international landscape. Or at least we are trying to do that. A very painful thing, a very painful issue is or are stolen Ukrainian universities, organizations, institutions, and there is no still kind of, I don't know, the general policy in Ukraine regarding these issues. More than 1,500, just imagine the scale of the problem. 1,500 Ukrainian educational research organizations have been seized by Russia after 2014. Including up to 300 higher educational institutions, I mean colleges, branches, institutes, universities, etc. And each of these facilities, each of these stolen piece of Ukrainian academia, it is in the real-time regime using to promote Russian propaganda, its geopolitical agenda, etc. We have been performed even kind of an academic research regarding this and a publication. You can get acknowledged with this to find some details. Or if you would like to have kind of an easy reading version, you can read this publication in the Vox Ukraine, devoted to stolen Ukrainian universities. Well, I don't want to waste your time with kind of additional long discussion about figures, etc. I mean, the problem is big. The situation is tough. And overall, in general, no solution is still available yet because, as I have been mentioned, even MESA, the Ministry of Education and Science in Ukraine, they do not have a single database with the list of stolen organizations. And this is kind of because this result, I mean, these publications, these were just the first initial steps to show that the problem, it exists. And of course, it needs further attention and steps because, as I had been mentioned, thanks to this, I mean, thanks to the availability of stolen Ukrainian universities, Ukrainian territories are marked as Russian by international publishers and academic organizations. Russia has stolen not only the organizations or institutions, they have also stolen not only, let's say, a material basis, but also immaterial as well. For example, journals. There were a lot of Ukrainian journals, and they were stolen by Russia, and Russia is using them as the source and the tool of propaganda. I mean, a lot of issues, quite serious problem. We were trying to highlight it, and I really expect that something might be done. This is just an illustration. A Ukrainian journal, it is still, for example, mentioned, and the said thing, they confirmed its status by the Ukrainian, by the way, Center, ISSN. But this is a Russian journal. It is published by Russia, and it provides the narratives of Russia. But international community thinks that this is a Ukrainian journal. This is also an issue. And the roots of this problem, the stolen universities. Professor Makarenko, I believe she has provided you with not a brief, but with a detailed description of one of our major activities regarding the editorial boards of Russian journals. Currently, more than 800 Russian journals are indexed in Scopus, and something like 500 indexed in Web of Science. What does it mean, index in Scopus? It means that they are presented in the international academic sphere, and they have instruments to provide the Russian narratives inside the international academic community. We decided to fix this problem somehow. because the heart of each journal is an editorial board. Before 2014, before 2022, Russian journals, they managed to incorporate a lot of international academicians from the Western countries into their journals. And our aim, I would say, was to fix this issue, somehow to remove people from Germany, from Sweden, from the USA, from the editorial boards of Russian journals. We have created a data set of these 800 Russian journals, explored each of them, the editorial boards, and we have created a final data set with more than 400 journals where at least 2 or 3 international academicians were present, were mentioned as the editorial board members. And Professor Makarenko, she has discussed with you the first phase of our, it's called editorial attack. This year we have been started and we have scaled up this activity thanks to Irina Lutsenko and Victor, who decided to join us and help us quite significantly. Thanks a lot, because we have managed, thanks to them, to collect up to 3,000 names of the international academicians mentioned as an editorial board members of the Russian journals. And we have sent them letters with requests whether they are still members. And actually we have usually trying to provide some arguments, let's call them arguments against being affiliated with journal, why this might be a bad idea for a respectful academician to be affiliated or associated with such journal. There was a part of replies, of toxic replies. The scientists, they feel that we have intruded into their private life. But actually, as I have been mentioned, we don't care. We don't care about academic reputation. We do care about the results. By the way, results, they were published in our analytical report, in media publication, and overall, in general, currently we have received more than 500 replies, which I believe quite a solid number, because we have managed to communicate directly with more than 500 editorial board members. This is kind of 20% reply rate. Professor Makarenko, she has provided with the results based on a smaller data set of initial one. We don't have results yet for our current phase because we are still in process. We are trying to reach the 3,000 benchmark of letters sent, but still, I would say the results are more or less of the same nature. I mean, up to 30%, they don't know at all they are members of Russian editorial boards. Actually, Russia is directly fabricating and falsificating the editorial boards. And up to 60%, maybe currently a little bit less, but still, they plan to withdraw. I mean, when I'm telling you that we have 500 replies, this means almost automatically that kind of 250 academicians decided to withdraw from Russian editorial boards. And I think this is a huge achievement, because in conditions like this, these are unsubstitutable losses. Russian chief editors could not find a proper substitution because they are too toxic. And I believe this is kind of another evidence that it worth it. I hope Professor Markan discussed with you the official positions regarding this. This is very shameful, and I don't want even to stop with this, but the general impression is they, as usual, do not care. They don't see the issue. Some very general current results so far, just to show you that even if there are kind of 2, 3 of you you can change the world. This is a step-by-step approach. These are very teeny steps, but they are material. As I had been mentioned, kind of 250 editorial board members left Russian journals. After our request, Elsevier decided to stop publishing Russian journal Mendeleev Communications. And this is quite okay, I believe. Also, some of the Russian journals were analyzed by Scopus to be discontinued from the database. In some cases, Scopus changed affiliations from the Russian territories to Ukrainian for the Ukrainian cities and Ukrainian regions. We have removed we have removed Russian members from 5 international academic organizations, which is quite okay as well. And also we have done some noise. We have, I would say, I'm almost sure, stopped the further collaboration between Russian and Ukrainian academicians. We have created at least on the kind of the third or the fourth year of the full-scale aggression, after the start of the full-scale aggression, of a working group on sanctions against Russian science in the Ministry of Education and Science, because in 2022, 2023, such group was simply not available. And as a result, there was no kind of promotion of idea of sanctions against Russian academia. These are results of a lot of different media coverage, because we need to make some noise. We need to make this topic toxic for the international organizations to communicate, to collaborate with Russian academicians. The media coverage include the TV, the media publications, and we are talking about, in some cases, up to 100K views. This is, for example, for the case of ICTV, YouTube film. Some other examples of our, let's say, activities. Of course, possible solutions. I am a big promoter of official sanctions. I mean, we shouldn't be just in official cases when each university, for example, decide by itself whether it's okay, ethical for them to communicate with Russia or not. So we are trying to move this to the official level, when the sanctions would be official against the Russian academician. Also, thanks to or using the publications, we are trying to increase the reputational risks for international organizations. They don't want to have noise. We are trying to create this noise. We are trying to kind of gather as much attention to this issue as it is possible. And we are trying to push the academic journals, publishers, databases, international organizations to monitor their state of relations with Russia, to monitor their sites regarding the aspects concerning the Russian science. They should somehow revise their policies. I mean, they should not just say that this is Russia who provided us with the information that Crimea is Russian. That is why we publish it as it is on our site. No, this is your site, and you're responsible for the content on your site. You should make changes. The situation has changed since 2024, and you have accept this fact and provide proper changes. Actually, what I want from you? Why have I stolen an hour of your precious time? I feel that if there would be more attention to these issues, there would be more chances that these issues will disappear. I mean, inform your international colleagues about this, provide them with the links. For example, just ask them, well, maybe they are members of Russian journals, of editorial boards. They can check, and some of them might be surprised that they are official members. I mean, this is a very typical case. Collaborate with us. If you feel that this is kind of injustice and we should somehow fix the situation, we are open to communication in any forms, media coverage, the collaboration in research, the, let's call it, common attacks. We are quite open, so contact us, contribute to us, and let's make this world a little bit better. Thank you. Questions, comments, propositions, ideas, etc.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor. It was really powerful. A lot of insightful data, as it is stipulated on the chat by Lisa. This is really incredible data. So let's open the floor for questions, remarks. Who would like to ask about something? Please raise your hands.
Thank you, Bartosz. Can you just stop the recording?
Yes, I'm stopping the recording. Thank you for reminding me.